Ever wondered how Vietnam, a country with such a complex past, transformed from ancient kingdoms to a global economic power? In this video, we will take you on an incredible journey through Vietnam, covering topics such as the rise of ancient civilizations, the long struggle for independence from China, the Vietnam War, and the country's post-war transformation. We'll also explore how Vietnam has become a rising power in the 21st century. Join us as we uncover the fascinating history that shaped modern Vietnam. Let's dive in. Early beginnings, the rise of ancient Vietnam. Thousands of years ago, long before cities, roads, and skyscrapers, the people of Vietnam lived in small villages along the Red River Delta in the north. Why did they choose this area? The rich, fertile soil made it perfect for farming, especially growing rice. The people who lived here developed a culture known as the Dong Sun culture, famous for their bronze tools and artistic creations. Do you think life was easy back then? It was far from it. People had to fight hard for survival, using their natural resources wisely. As the centuries passed, these villages grew stronger and began to unite, forming the early kingdom of Van Lang around 2000 BC. This kingdom was the first step toward what would later become modern Vietnam. Vietnam under the shadow of China. By the 2nd century BC, China's power was growing, and Vietnam became part of the vast Chinese empire. Can you imagine what it would be like to live under foreign rule? For over 1,000 years, the Chinese controlled Vietnam, trying to force the Vietnamese people to adopt Chinese customs, language, and ways of life. But the Vietnamese weren't going to let that happen easily. In 40 AD, two brave sisters, Trung Trac and Trung Nhi, led a massive rebellion against the Chinese. Why do you think they decided to fight? The Trung sisters raised an army of 80,000 people, including many women, and launched attacks against the Chinese soldiers. The rebellion was fierce, but in the end, the Chinese crushed the uprising. However, the Trung sisters became symbols of resistance. Their bravery is still remembered today. How do you think their story inspired future generations of Vietnamese? The quest for freedom, Vietnam's early independence. Even after the fall of the Trung sisters, the Vietnamese people did not stop fighting for their independence. Over time, various kingdoms such as Campa and Dai Viet rose and fell, all struggling to maintain their freedom from foreign powers, especially China. In 938 AD, after several centuries of Chinese domination, Vietnam finally gained its independence. Can you imagine the celebration? The Vietnamese defeated a Chinese army at the Battle of Bac Dang River, and from that moment, they were no longer under China's control. The Dai Viet Kingdom was born, marking the beginning of a new chapter in Vietnamese history. How do you think the people felt after winning such an important battle? The Mongol threat, the resilience of the Tran dynasty. By the 13th century, a new challenge came from the Mongols. Kublai Khan, the ruler of the Mongol Empire, wanted to expand and invade Vietnam. The Mongols were feared all over Asia, so how do you think the Vietnamese felt when they heard the Mongols were coming? But instead of being scared, the Vietnamese under the Tran dynasty rose to the challenge. They fought off not one, not two, but 3 Mongol invasions. How were they able to do this? The Vietnamese had clever military tactics and a fierce determination to protect their land. The Mongol Empire eventually gave up on invading Vietnam, which proved how strong and resilient the Vietnamese people were. What does this tell you about their spirit? French colonization and the road to independence. Now let's fast forward to the 19th century. By then, France had become a powerful colonial empire, and Vietnam was one of its targets. French forces took control of Vietnam and turned it into part of French Indochina. But how would you feel if your country was controlled by a foreign power? Life under French rule wasn't easy for the Vietnamese people. The French took over the country's resources and forced the people to work for them. The Vietnamese began to resist, and one man became the leader of that resistance, Ho Chi Minh. He founded the Viet Minh, a group that fought tirelessly for Vietnam's independence. What made Ho Chi Minh so important to Vietnam's fight for freedom? He was not just a leader, but a symbol of hope for the entire country. In 1954, after years of struggle, Vietnam finally defeated the French in the Battle of Dien Bien Phu. Vietnam was free once again, but was divided into 2 parts, the communist North and the non-communist South. What do you think it would have been like to live in a country that was divided? The Vietnam War, a nation at war. In the 1960s and 1970s, the Vietnam War took place, a war that changed everything for Vietnam. North Vietnam, led by Ho Chi Minh and the Communist forces, was in conflict with South Vietnam, which was supported by the United States. Can you imagine living through a war that involved so many countries? The Vietnam War was brutal and heartbreaking, with millions of lives lost on both sides. During the war, the United States sent thousands of troops to support the South, and the country became divided not just within but also on a global scale. How do you think the people of Vietnam felt about the war? Would they want peace or revenge? The war ended in 1975 with the fall of Saigon, and Vietnam was reunified under communist rule. But the scars of the war would remain for many years. How long do you think it took for the country to heal from such a devastating conflict? Vietnam today, a rising power. Now let's jump to the present. What's Vietnam like today? The country has transformed dramatically since the days of war. In 2025, Vietnam is one of the fastest growing economies in Asia, and its cities are bustling with activity. Have you heard that Vietnam is becoming a major player in the global market? With its booming tech industry, growing manufacturing sector, and beautiful landscapes attracting tourists, the country is on the rise. Vietnam's current president, Vo Van Thuong, is leading the nation into this new era, focusing on building stronger international relationships and improving the quality of life for all Vietnamese citizens. What kind of advancements do you think Vietnam will make next? Education, technology, sustainability? Vietnam is working on it all. The future of Vietnam. Where is it headed? Vietnam's future seems full of promise. The country has made significant strides in economic development, technology, and infrastructure. Cities like Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi are buzzing hubs of commerce and innovation, and the country's young, educated workforce is helping drive the economy forward. How do you think technology will shape Vietnam's future? With a focus on green energy, digital advancements, and smarter cities, Vietnam is poised to be a leader in the next wave of global progress. But the challenges aren't over. Vietnam must also deal with environmental issues, such as climate change and rising sea levels, which could affect its large coastal areas. What do you think the country should focus on to balance growth with sustainability? Another exciting development is Vietnam's rising role in international politics. The country has been increasing its presence on the global stage, forming new partnerships with nations like Japan, India, and the United States. This shift marks Vietnam as a more powerful, influential country in Southeast Asia. How do you think these international relationships will impact Vietnam's future? A bright future. What's next for Vietnam? As we look at Vietnam's incredible journey, one thing is clear. Its people have shown time and time again that they will never give up on their country. From ancient times to the modern day, Vietnam has risen from the ashes, fought for its freedom, and now stands as a beacon of hope and progress. What do you think? Where do you see Vietnam in the next decade? With its growing economy, young population, and focus on technology and innovation, the future is wide open for Vietnam. If you found this journey through Vietnam's history exciting, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with friends, and subscribe for more fascinating content. What other country's history would you love to explore? Let us know in the comments below.